All right, so today I want to show you how to find and identify pine pitch. I'm actually up here in the mountains of Colorado. I'm at about 9,000 feet elevation, so the air is pretty thin up here. And this part of the forest is pretty interesting. I've never really been over here before. And if you notice, there's a lot of trees, like this tree right here. These are, first of all, you have to identify your trees. So this is actually a ponderosa pine tree. And the way you can figure out if it's a ponderosa pine is, first thing you can do is smell it. And it actually smells like vanilla. It's a pretty interesting smell on these ponderosa pines. They get pretty tall. Not too bad. These are probably some of the biggest ponderosa pines that I've ever seen. Kind of the weird thing about this part of the forest is it almost seems like it's really thinned out. Some parts are real thick and you can hardly walk through them. This part's pretty thinned out. And if you're looking for pine pitch, one of the best places to find it is on ponderosa pines, and it's usually just right on the tree. So one thing you have to watch up here, I'm like on the middle, I'm like in the middle of nowhere. I'm pretty much on the edge, I guess you'd say like on the edge of civilization here. So if you actually go straight that way, there's absolutely nothing. So you really have to watch, I'd say, during the daytime, primarily for mountain lions. The mountain lions like to stalk you during the day, but normally they sleep during the day, and I'd say most of them come out at night. All right, so what we're gonna do is, first of all, I wanna show you the pine needles on here. So if you actually look at the needles on the ponderosa pine, you'll actually see that they come out in bundles of 2. That's a identification for your pine trees. So you'll actually see, like right there, every bundle has 2 needles, and the tree smells like vanilla. That's a good sign that you have ponderosa pine. And usually on these ponderosas, the pine sap, or pine pitch, as bushcrafters like to call it, is right on the outside of the tree. So I'm actually just gonna kind of walk around. Sometimes you can actually look up a little bit and see there's just a little bit right there. Not really worth collecting on that one. But the funny thing is, usually once you find a tree with pine pitch, you'll find that certain trees have a lot of it. So you see little tiny bits here and there, but every now and then you find a tree where you get a whole handful of the pine pitch. And usually the pine pitch, it actually has quite a few uses. If you look up the uses of pine pitch, I'd say, if you look on YouTube, most people say that you can make glue out of it. There's so many more things you can do with it besides making glue. But sometimes if you just stop and look, sometimes you can see it. Sometimes if you see a tree in distress, like I actually see, wow, that's one of the biggest. Look at that one. That one is huge. But sometimes if you see a tree, and I want to show you how big that one is. That one's super tall. Look at how tall that one is. That's one of the biggest ones I've seen. They usually don't grow like, redwoods or anything like that. But a lot of times if you find a tree that's distressed like this, or all twisted, a lot of times you'll find a lot of pine sap. So on this one, you'll see a little bit right down here, little tiny balls. So take a look at that. That's just a tiny little ball of pine pitch. You can pull those little balls off. Sometimes they're hard like this. Sometimes you need a knife That's almost not even hardly worth collecting right there. But sometimes there's a ton of it on a tree. And I'd say usually maybe about 1 in every 20 trees has a lot of pine pitch. So far, I haven't really seen a lot. So what I want to do is I want to make a video of showing you all the different uses of pine pitch. But first we need some pine pitch. And the funny thing about the pine pitch is that it actually has turpentine in it. Boy, I'm just not hitting many trees here. See, if you look at the back of the original way they used to harvest turpentine, they would actually slice a tree. They'd slice a V in the bark and they'd put a little container under it. And that would actually collect the pine resin, which is really high in turpentine. And then they distill it down and the resin would turn into 1 part turpentine and 1 part rosin. And rosin is basically what's left over after you boil off the turpentine. I'm going to take a look at this tree. This is a different kind of tree. I really haven't had much luck finding a lot of pine pitch on the blue spruce. This is a blue spruce right here. You can see the leaves are completely different, the needles. Never really found a lot of, oh, there's a little bit. Very little bit. Just tiny little bits. Oh, take a look at this. This is, wow, that's an interesting tree. So I've never actually been over here in this part of the woods. That's the craziest looking tree I've ever seen. Take a look at that. Wow. Look at the base on that thing. Look at how fat it is. I've never seen a, this is actually a blue spruce. But look at all this pine pitch. Wow. That's really interesting. I did not know that you get, all right, so what I want to do with this is I'm going to collect some of this. That's a different looking pine pitch. So you can see the tree was damaged right here, like part of it broke off. It almost looks like it was cut off right here. So take a look at that. Like someone cut into it, which is weird. All right, so what I'm gonna do is, I usually don't carry like baggies with me. But I'm gonna pop my pack here. I'll show you what I use to kind of collect things so I don't have a whole handful of pine sap and get all sticky. What I usually use is I just use a bandana. These bandanas are cheap, they're easy. You can roll them up, put them in your back pocket. I pack pretty light for bushcrafting. And if you're wondering what bushcrafting is, I'll definitely do a video, one of my future videos. What is bushcrafting? It's basically finding resources, food, water, shelter, fire, and other natural products that you can use to survive and thrive in the wilderness. All right, so what I'm gonna do, I don't really have a stand for my tripod here. So I have to get kind of creative. All right, so I'm using my leg as a tripod. I don't know how good that's gonna work, but I want to try to just take some of this off here with my knife. This is pretty hard to harvest on this one, I'd say. It's pretty thin and wispy. All right, so I'm trying to get a good angle to where you can see this. I think you can see that pretty good. So this, I'd say this is pretty hard to harvest right here. This is usually not as hard as it should be. There's a lot on here, but it's just like spread all over the place. So take a look at that. And I'm dropping it. So essentially this is what it is. It's like real sticky, gooey stuff. And when that stickiness gets on you, it stays on for a long time. The best way to get it off is like denatured alcohol. You can actually get it off your finger. I usually try not to touch it that much. All right, so that was one big sticky mess. I'm gonna try to find something better. Seems like the Ponderosa pines are better than something like that where it's all runny and goopy. I just don't want to get lost out here. That's the one thing. I think I got my bearings pretty good. Yeah, I do a lot of mushroom hunting too. And you can get lost real easy mushroom hunting. The problem is you'll see a mushroom, you go over there, you see another mushroom, you get so excited about the mushrooms, especially if you're finding really good mushrooms. And then before you know it, you realize you've been walking all over and you haven't really been paying attention of your directions and which way is home. So you definitely want to pay attention to how to get out of these woods here. All right, so I'm going to stick with Ponderosas. I don't see any on that one. Don't see any on that one. A lot of times you can just kind of walk by them from a distance and see. Or I'm just striking out here. Wow, look at this one. I would say that is a pretty distressed tree right there. And it's still alive. I'm actually surprised that we're not seeing a lot of pine sap on that one. Wow. I can barely see the tree on that one. Huh. You would think that would be all full of pine pitch, but I'm not seeing anything in there. Weird. All right, we'll keep going. The hard part around here is since the elevation's 9,000 feet and the air is pretty thin, you gotta pace yourself. All right. Boy, I don't know if I'm gonna find any today. Usually I do pretty good. That's another, wow. There's some here. Take a look at that. Wow. There's a whole bunch right there. This is a blue spruce. Let's see what we can get from this one. Now my hands are all sticky. My knife's getting all sticky. It's pretty good. Not too bad. But it doesn't really, oh, maybe right here. Yeah, take a look at this. We got some thick stuff right here. If I can hold the tripod and show you at the same time. All right. This is like a, yeah, I think I can get a lot from right here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my my bandana, I'll just put it under here and I'll just keep scraping this off. I think I can get quite a bit from here. So here's a fail. This is the first time I tried a bandana. Not working very good. Actually, I think I do have a plastic bag in my pack. This bandana was definitely a fail. All right, so I'm gonna switch to a plastic bag here. I use a plastic bag to keep some power bars. If you're hunting for food and you're dependent on wildlife, small game, large game, fish, you want to make sure you have some backup because your hunting might not always be successful. All right, so I got a little bag here. And I'm thinking I might have to throw away this bandana. I pretty much trashed it with this pine sap. I get these real cheap. They're like 10 for $10. All right. So this is the first time I tried the bandana. It was a fail. All right, let's see what I can collect here for pine pitch. There's quite a bit here, actually. All right, so that's pretty good. Look at all that pine pitch. I think it's mostly pitch. Got a little bit of bark in there. But look what it did to my knife. I completely gummed it up. And that's why I always carry two knives. One for pitch, one for everything else. Wow, that's one big sticky mess. That was pretty good right there. All right, so I'm gonna put this in my back pocket. Still recording? All right, so we're still recording, I guess, but my screen went off because my camera was overheating. All right, let's see if we can find a little bit more. I was thinking about we're actually more up in the blue spruce. I think I want to go back down to the ponderosa pine. I can kind of hear something. A lot of times if you just hear something in the background just kind of scurrying around, a lot of times that could be a mountain lion stalking you. You kind of have to watch those guys. They'll be completely invisible. We got some big ones up here. All right, let's see if I can figure out how to get home. See if we can find a little bit more on the way here. Oh yeah, here's a good spot right here. This is what I normally see. Take a look at this. So this is like ponderosa pine sap. You don't even have to you don't even have to chip it off. It's just in chunks. Usually these hard chunks like right here, it just pops right off. And like little balls, you'll see the little balls like that. Ugh. Usually I use my knife, but just like that. It's just there for the taking. I've actually seen some people like climb up trees, but I'm not that die-hard for it. There's usually enough trees out here where I can find. Here's another little piece. And there's usually different stages of it. Usually when it first comes out, it's really goopy, and then after a while it dries up. A lot of times it'll kind of trick you too, because you'll be walking through a place that you think you cleared out, and all the pine pitch will be on the opposite side of the tree where you don't see it. So you almost have to completely walk around every single tree if you want to make sure you got it all from one certain area, which is kind of tedious. Unless you're just kind of walking through, you know, not really having that as your main purpose. And then as you see it, you can just collect it. All right, we're back down here in the ponderosas. See what we can find here. Oh, that one looks dead right there. All right, so I'm gonna have a handful of resin here. So we're doing pretty good, not too bad. So essentially what we do, what I do is I heat this over the fire, heat it up till it melts, and then you get you drive off a lot of the turpentine, and then you have a lot of the pine, kind of like a resin. I guess it'd be the rosin on the bottom that you can use for different things. All right, so let's see. Don't want to get turned around out here, that's for sure. That one's kind of interesting. This is, wow. This is, I've never seen a tree quite like this before. This is, I believe this is a ponderosa. It's had a hard life. Look at that bark on this one. I've never seen bark that's like has these big chunks in it. This thing must have got hit by lightning and survived. That's what I'm thinking. It's looking pretty rough. All right, let's see what else we can find out here. All right, so I have my bearings. I know where I'm at. That's always a good thing. Whew. Definitely do not want to get lost. I've actually gone on some mushroom picking hunts with the Colorado Mycological Society. And sometimes you get out in the middle of nowhere and you run into a couple of people that are just absolutely panicked because they're lost. And it's like, oh yeah, the road's right over there. We're not that far. All right, so sometimes, kind of like the same way you're mushroom hunting, a lot of times you're kind of focused on one tree. You kind of make a beeline to that tree and then circle it, and then make a beeline to another tree and circle it. Sometimes it helps just to stop and scan with your eyes and kind of look to see what you can see. If you can actually see kind of, you can see, kind of look out and see multiple trees and see if you can find anything that has the pine pitch on it. Depends on how good your eyes are too. All right, so I'm gonna go a little bit further over here, this way. And a lot of times you'll find a lot of your pine pitch, pine pitch. So some people call it pine sap. A lot of times you'll find it on your bigger trees. Look at how big this ponderosa is right here. Really big. Pretty much as big as they get. But I'm not seeing any on these. Here's another big one right here. Wow, that one's massive. I think that's the biggest one I've ever seen. Look, it splits. Look at how wide it is at the bottom. That's crazy. It's in good shape too. You can really smell the vanilla smell coming off of that one. All right, here's another one. I thought I'd be collecting more than I actually am. Nothing on this one. This seems like a game trail over here. Take a look at that. Kind of opens up into a really wide game trail. Look at how thick it's getting back here. Wow. All right, so we'll go a little bit further. I don't want to go too far into the thick of it here. This is like mountain lion ambush hunting in this thick stuff here. You're gonna have to watch out for those guys. They're definitely ambush hunters. Here's a nice big one. Oh, look at that one. Really far up there. I don't see any pitch on it though. A lot of down trees in here. Might have to go fatwood hunting at some point. I'll show you what fatwood is and how to get it. Here's looks like a blue spruce. Have some, take a look at this. That's pretty nice. Doesn't really clump up like the, like you'd see in the ponderosa pine. But I'm thinking I can get a bunch from that one. Yeah, this looks pretty good right here. My knife is getting all sticky, super sticky. It's all this blue spruce sap that's really super goopy. It seems like it doesn't really harden up as much as the other trees. But there's a lot of it here. The last one, it was kind of tricky because some of it almost looked like bark, but once you cut into it, it was actually a lot of sap. or pitch. It's funny, you call it, a lot of people have this disagreement of exactly what this is called. I think universally on most bushcrafters, they call it pine pitch. And then when someone calls it sap or rosin or resin, people are like, you named it the wrong, you called it the wrong thing. Which is funny. Wow, we're getting a lot. Wow. I think I might stop after this one. This is a pretty good one. And I'm dropping some. That's pretty good. Not bad. Got some over here. And it just so happens it's all going in my baggie, which is pretty fortunate. There's some more. Wow. That is one sticky knife. Look at how sticky that knife is. My fingers are all sticky. It's a sticky job. And maybe on this side, a little bit. It's like a little dribbling over the whole tree. But that was pretty much the main part of it right there. Wow, that was pretty good. All right, I'm happy with that. That's a good amount right there. A lot of people use that as fire starter. All right, so I'm gonna head back, start heading back. See if we can find some on the way back here. Kind of keep my eyes peeled for it. I should be looking for mushrooms too. There's so much stuff out here that you can look for. The pine pitch, the mushrooms. So I moved up here in the mountains about 20 years ago. And when I moved up here, oh, there's some shelf mushrooms. Little wood mushrooms there. I'll have to do another video on the wood mushrooms. Maybe I'll have to show you how to make a torch using wood mushrooms and some pine sap, where you actually tap into the tree and get the sap from the tree. But yeah, I moved up here about 20 years ago. And the people that helped me move, they're like, I don't know what's going on up here, but I can't breathe. It's because the air is so thin. We're up here at altitude, 9,000 feet. You have to remember to take breaks and drink a lot of water. I usually bring at least a quart of water with me all the time, which a quart of water actually weighs 2 pounds. So if you have a real heavy pack and you start adding a lot of water, it makes it a really heavy pack. And I don't know, when it comes to predators, I always feel a lot safer more in the open. I guess because I have more time to see something coming at me versus something jumping out from behind the trees. Plus, the other thing is when you're walking uphill, especially a steep hill, it can really wear you out up here. But once you hit the top, like right here, coming out of that valley, then it's a little bit easier. I can hear something moving around in there. Not sure what it is. Seems pretty quiet. Usually I see deer and elk and everything else. The other thing walking around up here, you kind of have to keep your eyes open, because when I first started up here about 20 years ago, I kind of walk, you know, looking at the ground. And one time I looked up and I was like 20 feet away from a big bull elk. He was like huge. If that thing would have got aggressive, oh, I'd have been toast. So now I'm like, all right, I don't want to walk up on a big old elk. That's one of the main reasons that I kind of keep an eye out for what's going on here. So I don't really see any more pine pitch. That's pretty much it. I'm happy with what we got. We got quite a bit. Not too bad. Here's another big tree. Kind of walk around the last few trees here to see if we can see anything. Yeah, I think one of my favorite trees is the ponderosa. They just make the whole forest smell really good with that kind of a vanilla pine smell. It's pretty awesome. So I think that's pretty much it. Getting closer to home. And yes, my home is on the edge of civilization. I pretty much have a house in the middle of an elk herd. Lots of ponderosa through here, tons of them. I'm surprised we're not finding more on ponderosas. Which is kind of surprising, actually. The other thing about the pine pitch is, seems like it develops pretty slow. So if you kind of go through and harvest one spot, it takes a long time for that stuff to come back. All right, so that's pretty good. Look at all that. Got a nice bag of pine pitch. I was out the other day in a different spot and I got almost, I'd say maybe about half this. I didn't get quite that much. But what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna go home and rinse off my knife in denatured alcohol and get the stick off of everything. I guess I'm gonna throw my bandana away. So that is pretty much it for a day in the woods, bushcrafting. All right, so I'll do another video. Maybe tomorrow I'll do another video. We'll come out and look for something else. I was thinking just over the ridge, if you actually go down over the ridge, there's a little stream. I'm not sure exactly how that stream is this time of year. It could be, I don't think it completely dries up, but I was thinking I could build like a bushcraft base camp around here. Maybe go down to that stream for some water. Then we can bring that water back up and do some water purification on that water from the stream. All right, so that's pretty much it. Thanks for coming along, and I will see you next time.